Hello. Sometimes I sit back and I just kind of think about different statements that people make in responses to different posts that I put up, and I posted recently about George Floyd, and I think it was about two discussions that I facilitated about him, and here's the thing, about that argument that kind of irritates me is that people are so focused on the narrative that the capitalist people that gained from his death painted that they kind of take away from the human being that died. And so when I listen to individuals, someday they're like, George Floyd was a criminal. He was a drug addict. He was on drugs. He was high. They talk about all these negative things that he was. Um, and they even talk about his past as if somehow his past, you know, dictated, why he ended up dying. And it's like, well, first of all, he was being arrested not because of some pregnant woman that he pulled a gun on. He wasn't being arrested because of his past criminal activity. He was being arrested because he presented a counterfeit 20 to a store merchant, and that person called the cops on him, which I think is completely ridiculous in every hood sense of ridiculous. Because if you from the hood, you already know ain't no store merchant about to call the cops off of no counterfeit 20. That's just all right. We gonna let y'all believe that. But anyways, I wanted to talk about choices though, because everyone was talking about how George Floyd had a choice to do all the things that he did. And it's like, hey, in some regards, we all do have a choice to make good decisions or bad decisions. I think when you look at the pattern of George Floyd's life, he was definitely in a position to be able to make better decisions than some other people where you look at their background and you're like, yo, I don't understand where you're talking about choice. And the reason why I say that is because when you think about the definition of choice, right? Choice is defined as an act of selecting or making a decision when faced with two or more possibilities. If you're born in a cycle of welfare and poverty, if you're born in a cycle of kids having kids and poor choices, like, and that's all you're born into is like this cycle of poor choice and generation after generation of poor choices, generational welfare instead of generational wealth, and you live in these realities, right? And then you go to school and you learn about black history and civil rights and slavery and how marginalized your people are in society anyways, right? And you learn about what your position in society is, and it's basically being oppressed and not really being much of anything, right? Productive. And then you talk about the choices that everybody has to make, and as if everyone has the same choice. Everybody's running into the decision making process with the same psychology and the same background and the same experiences. And I try not to let people things like shake me or anything like that, but it's like, come on, dude, you cannot say that everybody has the same choices. Yes, everybody has a choice, but is that choice the same? Is that choice equitable? If you are, a kid living on a sunny side of somewhere in California and both of your parents are together, and even if they are, workaholics, you got everything you can imagine to be happy, maybe except for the love and comfort of your family because the digital media is raising you, you know, even still, even that situation, there's a psychology that's being built in that child, concerning their human interaction with their parents. And then that's going to drive, their decision making, right? Same way with, I feel like, our brothers in these inner cities. A lot of people can talk about the high crime and they can talk about these individuals as if they have the same choice as everyone else. And, here's the thing, I feel like in the age of digital media, ignorance is a choice. But I also don't take away from the fact that people are being traumatized by people that they trust. And that's creating a cycle of, you know, it's creating a cycle of bad psychology that impacts a person's decision making. And so when some people may have two or more possibilities in front of them, those possibilities may not seem so clear as somebody who has not been traumatized by the same situations. And so, I want people to really be considerate and less judgmental about people. And I talk about this even with hip hop music because I hate hip hop music. It promotes violence, and it's like, no, I look at hip hop music as these artists who are talking about their experience that happens to have a violent undertone because that is the reality that they were living, and in their reality, you know, a lot of them don't see the same choices as somebody else that don't come from that reality. I mean, I listen to a lot of the lyrics and I'm like, these brothers are saying they're in hell. They're identifying themselves as demons, and that is a problem. That is a terrible psychology that, a segment of this country has, where their situation is so hopeless that they not only believe that they're in hell, that they believe that they have a green light to behave as demons. And I don't understand why, these things are not discussed, but it's actually being perpetuated. And people are profiting off of this, but at the end of the day, we still have more brothers that are being killed in this country. So, when I think about people talking about everybody has a choice, I venture to, for these people to sit back and think about what they know about choices. You know what I mean? Because what you would do and what decisions you would make for yourself is not going to be the same as what somebody else would do. And I think people need to be very realistic about that. And the more realistic you are about that, the less judgmental you're going to be, especially if you're somebody professing to be a Christian, because vengeance and judgment is for our Lord. It is not our responsibility to make assumptions and characterize our brothers based off of things that they did in their past, because everybody grows and they change. But it's also not our responsibility to use somebody's past to justify their fate of the present, because at the end of the day, nothing that George Floyd did in his criminal past was relevant to what the manner of death that he experienced. And we don't know what the cause of death was, but the manner is definitely very questionable in my opinion. And I don't think that it's valuable to deflect on the fact that he had a drug addiction and a criminal past, from that point. And that's all I want people to do is just think before you judge and understand that not everybody has the same choices that you do. And even when you look at people like George Floyd, he may have been in a position where he could have made better choices in his life, but we still don't know what demons, what experiences George Floyd had to experience that led him to make the choices that he made. There's a lot of factors that drive people to drug use. I will never forget DMX saying that, when asked, do you have a drug problem? He said, I will always have a drug problem, because he was running away from dragons. He was running away from experiences, that impacted his livelihood, And so, again, think about the choices that other people may have to make from the context of their experience versus what you would do or what you have experienced, or even what you know of somebody who has gotten out of a situation in a similar light. You know what I mean? Because that person got out. But for every one person to get out of the hood, there's still 10 others that are stuck in a reality that they don't see a hope to get out of. So, again, choice is making a decision when faced with two or more possibilities. I challenge people who believe that everybody has a choice to ask yourself, does everybody have the same choice?